My name is Elias Branner. I'm a postgraduate archaeologist from the University of Edinburgh, with a specialization in archaeoastronomy, how ancient civilizations interpreted and aligned structures to celestial events. You probably haven't heard of me. If things had gone differently, maybe you would have seen my name attached to some obscure academic journal or on the placard of a dusty museum exhibit somewhere. But none of that matters now. What matters is what we found and what followed. In the summer of 2025, I received an invitation, an off-the-books offer, cloaked in confidentiality. It came through my advisor, Professor Cardwell, who had worked on several Near Eastern digs. The message was brief. Confidential. You've been selected for a closed excavation near Şanlıurfa, southeastern Turkey. We require someone with expertise in ancient celestial alignments. Travel expenses covered. Discretion essential. The only name attached was Dr. Hüseyin Altan, a Turkish archaeologist I recognized for his work on Göbekli Tepe, a Neolithic site older than any known temple, older than the wheel, writing, or agriculture. A place so ancient, it felt alien. I was told we'd be examining a previously sealed portion of the complex, something found beneath Pillar 43, the so-called vulture stone. It was one of Göbekli Tepe's most enigmatic features, a carved relief believed by some to represent constellations, possibly even a record of a catastrophic event. One dated, by some interpretations, to around 10,800 BC, the start of the Younger Dryas. 1,000 thoughts competed in my head. Was this the missing link between ancient flood myths and actual geological catastrophe? Was it finally proof that human civilization was older and more advanced than we dared admit? I accepted. I didn't hesitate. I wish I had. We arrived in late June. The sun was merciless. The hills around Şanlıurfa rolled dry and yellow like old parchment. I met the rest of the team at a small compound just north of the dig site. Temporary housing, surrounded by barbed wire and guarded by 2 Turkish military contractors. That wasn't normal. There were 12 of us total, half Turkish, half international. I recognized a few names. Dr. Melissa Rojas, a linguistic anthropologist from Colombia, an Egyptian geophysicist, Abbas Fahim. The rest were archaeologists, engineers, and one soft-spoken woman from MIT who said she was there to assist with subsurface imaging. She never gave her real name. We were each asked to sign non-disclosure agreements, thick ones. On my first night, I asked Dr. Altan what we were really doing here. He handed me a printout, a high-resolution scan of a LiDAR survey. It showed a massive, empty chamber beneath enclosure D, beneath the very pillars that had made Göbekli Tepe famous, a feature they had never before reported. "No one is to know we found this," he said. "Not yet." The chamber was 18 meters beneath the surface. Reaching it was slow and painstaking. An excavation through pre-Neolithic sediment, dense limestone, and strangely uniform backfill. The soil was laced with ash and black organic material, possibly remnants of a fire layer. Not unusual given the site's history. What was unusual was what we found when we breached the chamber wall. The stonework wasn't like the rest of Göbekli Tepe. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and the air that hissed out when we opened it was dry and odorless, preserved for millennia. The room was a perfect rectangle, about 8 by 12 meters, with a vaulted ceiling that defied engineering logic for the era. Along the far wall was a carved relief unlike anything we'd seen. It wasn't animalistic like the other enclosures. It was astronomical. Melissa gasped when she saw it. We were staring at a star map, one that mirrored the night sky exactly as it would have appeared in 10,800 BC. And in the center of that sky, a great serpent carved in raised relief plunged from above. Its tail crossed constellations. Its head was aimed at a crescent Earth. There were humans beneath it, burning. That night, in my tent, I reread my own research. The younger Dryas was a climatic catastrophe, a sharp and sudden cooling that lasted over a millennium. It reversed the planet's warming trend and plunged the world back into ice. It killed off mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and possibly most of early human culture. Some scientists believed it was caused by a comet or asteroid, possibly part of the torrid meteor stream. The same stream Earth still passes through twice a year. The same stream that delivered the Tunguska event in 1908. Some fringe researchers even claimed the vulture stone encoded the date of that impact. But this was something else. We had just uncovered a record, carved into stone, suggesting that the people of Göbekli Tepe knew about the comet, not as a natural disaster, but as a repeating event. A cycle. 3 days later, we uncovered the second chamber. It was smaller and filled with soot. On the wall were shallow niches that resembled stone, suggesting that the people of Göbekli Tepe knew about the comet, not as a natural disaster, but as a repeating event. A cycle. 3 days later, we uncovered the second chamber. It was smaller and filled with soot. On the wall were shallow niches that resembled bookshelves, but instead of books, there were tablets, sealed in clay, dozens of them. I don't know what madness overtook us, but we broke the seal on one and sent it to Melissa. She didn't speak for 6 hours. When she finally emerged from her tent, she looked pale, sick. "It's not a language I know," she said, "but it shares structural logic, phonetic clusters. It reads like a warning." I asked her to translate it. She showed me a handwritten page. "The fire returns, the sky cracks, the serpent strikes once, then again. The flesh of the world will blacken. The gods will walk once more beneath the flame. Beware the second fire. It comes when the serpent returns." A week passed. We all felt wrong. The dream started. I saw a scorched sky, clouds split apart by heat and light, figures tall and faceless, moving in slow ritual beneath the burning stars. Others described similar visions, waking nightmares, visions of ancient oceans swallowing stone cities, melting ice, a black serpent coiled around the sun. Abbas, the geophysicist, suggested it might be mass psychosis brought on by environmental contaminants, maybe ancient mold, or carbon monoxide leaks from the sealed chamber. But when we scanned for toxins, we found nothing. Air quality was pristine. That same night, the MIT woman vanished. Her tent was empty, her belongings untouched. There were no tracks, just one thing, her notepad, resting atop her sleeping bag with a single sentence written repeatedly. "They return with the flame. We are the ash." Dr. Altan called for a suspension of the dig. He radioed for extraction teams, but no one came. The guards said the radios were working. Headquarters had received our signal. They just weren't responding. Melissa suggested we seal the chambers again. That's when we found the sigils. They'd been scratched into the dirt outside each tent. Serpent shapes coiled in concentric spirals. Some were wet, freshly etched. The soil hadn't even begun to dry. That was when I knew we weren't alone. I'll stop here for now. My battery is low and the backup cells are missing. I don't know who took them. But if you're reading this, please understand. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple. It wasn't a calendar or a burial site or a monument. It was a warning, and we didn't listen. It's morning, I think. The light outside is red, like dust or smoke is blotting out the sun. There are no birds. The compound generator went out last night. I'm writing this by the last power cell in my tablet. The others are gone, just like the rest of the team. Let me rewind. After the disappearance of the woman from MIT, her name might have been Lena, we never found her credentials. There was a shift, not just in mood, but in the environment itself. Something had changed in the dig site, in the air. It had that quality you only notice before a thunderstorm, the kind that raises the hair on your arms and makes your teeth ache. Melissa took to sleeping with the tablets, not reading them, just having them near. She claimed they were giving her guidance. At first, I thought she was joking, but then she stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Her eyes had this sunken, distant look, like she was watching something none of us could see. 3 days later, we broke the seal on the central tablet from the chamber. It was larger than the others, about the size of a briefcase, and made from obsidian, not native to the region. The edges were so finely cut they looked machined. That should have been impossible. We didn't open it by choice. Melissa smashed it with a geologist's hammer. Inside the tablet was a core of compacted clay wrapped in an oily linen that left a residue on the gloves. Dr. Altan cursed when he saw it. The script was unfamiliar, not Sumerian, not Proto-Elamite. And yet it was written with clear syntax and spacing, almost like it was intended to be read by someone. I'll try to replicate what it said. This is from memory, but I've read it 100 times now. Asterisk, the sky speaks. The gods do not live in heaven. They fall, they burn. We worshipped them when they came. We built the stones to hold their names. One fire was mercy, the second is judgment. He who sees the sky crack must carry the flame. He who hears the name must never speak it. The flame returns. That was when the translator, Gerald, a Brit, started screaming. He didn't stop until his throat gave out. Said he saw faces in the wall. Said they were calling his name with their eyes. That night, he gouged his ears with a ceramic shard and wandered into the desert. We never found his body. We tried to leave. 3 of us, Abbas, a Turkish grad student named Yilmaz, and myself, loaded one of the jeeps and attempted to drive to Sanliurfa. 30 minutes in, the GPS started showing impossible readings. We looped around, saw our own tire tracks going the opposite direction. An hour later, we were back at the gate. Except, the gate wasn't there. Melissa was the worst. She had stopped speaking English. She would only respond in phonetic syllables none of us recognized. And always the same symbol, a triangle with a burning eye inside, over and over again. Dr. Altan snapped. He tried to restrain her, said he'd fly her out on the next chopper. But there were no choppers. The radio only returned static. That night, I woke to screams. Altan had vanished. All that remained was a stone from enclosure D, soaked in blood. The same kind of stone as the T-pillars, except this one was carved into a rough human shape. Where his face should have been was the burning triangle. Melissa claimed she didn't kill him. He offered himself, she said. The flame called him. I tried to confront her. She laughed. You still think this is a site, she said. But it's not. It's a door. A door to what? I asked. To the time before the first fire. That was when I realized the tablets weren't historical records. They were instructions. I need to explain something that I didn't believe at first. Something that sounds crazy. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple. It was a trap. A way to contain something. Or someone. The vulture stone. It doesn't show a past event. It shows a cycle. A celestial pattern. And according to the obsidian tablet, the second event is due soon. Possibly this year, 2025. The torrid meteor stream, the one some believe caused the younger Dryas, returns every few thousand years with larger debris. The ancient builders believed that every 12,000 years, a large object comes through. A serpent from the sky. We're due. And worse, there's a group trying to bring it about. They call themselves the Second Flame. I found the name burned into a notebook hidden in Lena's tent, along with coordinates, scattered across the world. Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan, Karnak, Lake Baikal, all megalithic sites, all tied to pre-flood myths. And each one contains something, a chamber, a symbol, a guardian. Göbekli Tepe was the first. The Second Flame wants to open them all. Melissa isn't Melissa anymore. She speaks to something in the dark now. Last night, I heard her chanting. And then, God help me, I heard it answer. Something deep, something old, something hungry. If you've made it this far, you might still think this is a hoax, an elaborate story. But ask yourself this. Why does nearly every ancient civilization have a flood myth dated to around 11,000 to 12,000 years ago? Why do so many share the same symbols? The serpent, the eye, the flame. Why are there buried megaliths older than agriculture that show advanced astronomical knowledge? Maybe it's all coincidence. Or maybe something came before us. And maybe it's coming back. It's harder to tell the time now. Since the sun went red, no, not red, obscured, I've been relying on my internal clock and I think I'm losing hours. Or maybe the place is taking them. Time bends here. Sound travels oddly. Shadows stretch too long. The ground hums. I've stopped trying to sleep. Melissa isn't human anymore. Or if she is, it's a thin shell. The thing that speaks through her uses her voice like a mask. It has begun calling itself Nazar, which, based on what I've translated, means flame that waits beneath. Old gods didn't always come from above, you know. Some were buried. And some were put there on purpose. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a city, or even a center of worship. It was a tomb, a sealing place, not for the dead, but for something older than myth. Something that fell from the sky during the younger Dryas. You've heard of the Carolina Bays? Pockmarks across the southeastern U.S., aligned in the same direction, dated to approximately 12,800 years ago. Impact theory says they came from fragments of a comet. The same event likely caused the sudden freeze that ended the last glacial period. A cosmic winter. The ancients survived. Some of them. They passed down stories, flood myths, cataclysms, fire from heaven, the fall of stars. They called it the first flame. Melissa, Nazar, claims it wasn't an accident. It was a purge, she whispered to me last night. They came to burn away the rot. And now, the rot has returned. The flame comes again. Dr. Altan's notes, the ones I found in his locker before he vanished, mentioned something chilling. There was another site, older than Göbekli Tepe, located beneath Lake Van, submerged. Rumors of obsidian monoliths and underwater terraces. The Turkish government has restricted access to the lake's depths for decades, unofficially. Altan believed it was the source, that Göbekli Tepe was a secondary ward, like a circuit breaker. If it failed, the deeper tomb beneath Lake Van would unlock. I fear we've triggered something. The seismic readings from the area spiked 2 nights ago, and the animals in the region, goats, dogs, birds, have begun fleeing inland, or dying in circles. The earth remembers. We just forgot how to listen. 2 days ago, I tried to escape on foot. Took the ridge westward, over the exposed plateau. The GPS spun again. After 2 hours, I reached a second Göbekli Tepe. I thought I'd walked in a circle. But no. The stars above it were in a different alignment. The carvings on the T-pillars were reversed. And the air was colder. Dead air. Inside the central ring was a shallow pit. At the bottom sat a mirror, the obsidian tablet we'd found weeks earlier, unbroken, untouched. But etched into its face was my name. I ran. Back at camp, Yilmaz was gone. Just his boots remained. Inside them, ashes, nothing else. I confronted Melissa again. She didn't speak, just smiled and pointed to the sky. "Do you feel it?" she asked. And I realized I did. A tremble, not in the air but in the bones of the earth, like something enormous was moving beneath the crust. I checked the seismographs. All over the world, activity was spiking, synchronized. Lake Baikal, the African Rift, Antarctica's subsurface lakes, they were all warming. Melissa said, "The seals are failing." Last night, I finally decoded part of the obsidian tablet. The original builders call themselves the Flame-Bound. They weren't priests, they were jailers. Each of them sacrificed their names, burned from memory, so that the entity would not recognize them should it ever rise again. They bound it with stone, symbol, and silence. But the cult that calls itself the Second Flame is trying to break the silence. Through blood rituals, mnemonic chants, and memory restoration ceremonies, they're trying to resurrect the original names. Because to speak the true name of Nezur is to invite it back into the world. And they believe that only by serving it can they survive what's coming. You still with me? I'm sending this as a timed relay through a buried fiber node the military used back in the early 2000s. Don't ask how I know. Just understand that if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. I'm going to Lake Van. If the legends are true, and there really is a temple beneath the water, then it must contain the primary seal. If I can reach it, if I can destroy whatever's inside, I might be able to stop the others from completing their chant. Because once all 7 names are spoken aloud, the sky will open. Not metaphorically, physically. I saw it in a dream last night. No, not a dream, a memory. Not mine, though. From them. A black comet, fragmented, carved with impossible geometry, crashing into the Atlantic and boiling the oceans. The survivors built monuments across the world, aligned to the same stars, warning the same message. Do not summon the flame. But we forgot. We turned the stones into myths, the myths into stories, the stories into tourism. And now, the stories are waking up. Melissa stood over the bonfire this morning, chanting the 5th name. The sky cracked. No thunder, just soundless light. A shape hovered above the hills, translucent, enormous. Wings made of shifting geometry. eyes that didn't blink but rotated. I wept, not from fear, from recognition. This was the thing that once burned the world clean. And we're calling it home. I made it to Lake Van. That sentence shouldn't exist. According to the maps, the dig site is over 300 kilometers from here. But after Melissa spoke the fifth name, reality buckled. Distances folded like origami. Time unraveled. I blinked and found myself walking along a rocky shoreline, my clothes salt-stiff and torn, my boots soaked. The water was black, slick like oil. Not from pollution, from depth. It absorbed light, refused to reflect stars. Even the moon looked warped above it, like it wanted to be somewhere else. This is where the flame sleeps. In the daylight, what little there was, I found them. Monoliths, half submerged in volcanic stone, arranged in spirals that radiated from the shore. Each bore markings similar to Göbekli Tepe, but older, cruder, less like language, more like warning. Symbols etched in fire-hardened obsidian. Serpents devouring suns, men with no eyes, suns split in two. And in the center, beneath 30 meters of water, was an opening. I don't dive. I never learned. But I didn't hesitate. I stripped to my base layer, strapped a half-full oxygen rig to my back, left behind by some forgotten explorer, and I went in. The lake swallowed me whole. Time didn't behave correctly beneath the surface. I followed a stone corridor that should have been carved by human hands, but wasn't. The walls bent around space, spiraling inward like the inside of a seashell. I swam through places where gravity pulled sideways, where shadows didn't align, where things brushed past me in the dark, things without form, only presence. I emerged in a pocket of air. An underground cathedral opened before me, cavernous, silent. The walls glistened with wet runes that pulsed faintly, each beat syncing with my heartbeat. In the center, a dais with 7 pedestals. 5 of them were glowing. 5 names spoken. 2 remain. Melissa, or Nezer, was waiting. She stood at the far end, barefoot, robed in something that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes were no longer human. Neither was her voice. "You came to stop me," she said, "but you've already helped." I raised the flare gun I'd brought. "Back away from the dais." She didn't flinch. "You think the flame burns out of malice? It burns to cleanse. This world is a wound. The first flame was a salve. The second, rebirth." "What's down here?" I asked. She smiled. "The truth of your species." I didn't believe her until I touched the 6th pedestal. A vision hit me, not a dream, a transmission. I saw the arrival. 12,000 years ago, a comet, hollow, crafted, pierced Earth's atmosphere. It split in 3. One piece shattered over North America, igniting continent-wide wildfires. One buried itself beneath the Atlantic Trench. The third, the seed, embedded itself beneath what we now call Lake Van. Not random, deliberate, placed, planted. It brought with it an intelligence, a parasite of flame and sound and memory. It spoke through fire, through dreams, through stories. It needed minds to remember it. The first flame failed. Some humans forgot. So now it would try again. I staggered back. Melissa approached. "You see now? The cult isn't summoning it. They're completing its memory, restoring what time has buried." She placed her hand on the 6th pedestal. It glowed. The walls screamed. Not a sound, a pressure like someone clamping your mind in a vice. My thoughts scattered, my ears bled. She began to chant. The sixth name. Each syllable was a wound in the air. I lunged, tackled her. We tumbled across the obsidian dais. My flare gun skittered across the floor. She clawed at my face, laughing. You can't stop this. You were brought here. You are the seventh seal. Then she said it. My name. Not Elias Branner. My real name, one I didn't know I'd forgotten. I heard it echo through the chamber, and the seventh pedestal shivered. My blood turned cold. You were born at the right time, in the right place, under the right stars, Melissa whispered, pinning me. You've dreamed of the flame since you were a child, haven't you? Yes. God help me, yes. I've seen it since I was 5. The black fire, the spiral sky, the eye that watches through walls. She leaned close. Say your name. Complete the flame. I did the only thing I could. I grabbed the flare gun, fired it point blank into the 6th pedestal. Obsidian cracked. Fire erupted. The name stopped mid-chant. Melissa screamed, not in pain but in fury. The chamber began to collapse. Water surged. The light failed. I don't remember how I escaped. Just fragments. The lake boiling, my body carried through tunnels by currents not made of water. Something carving symbols into my skin as I fled. I awoke on the shore, alone. Breathing. But branded. Now I'm on the move. There are others out there. Other seals, other forgotten names, tucked into bloodlines like mine. If I can find them, warn them. Maybe I can stop this. Maybe. But Melissa's not dead, or whatever she was. She will finish the chant, unless I stop her. I've become what I studied. A guardian. And this time, I won't forget. The dreams have changed. No longer fragments, no longer glimpses. I see it all. The descent, the bargain, the binding. 12,000 years ago, the comet wasn't just a weapon. It was a vessel. A prison ship of something that couldn't die, only sleep. The flame wasn't fire. It was memory with teeth. A sentience older than stars, orphaned by its creators, cast into the dark to wait. Humanity wasn't the target. We were soil. And now, the seed is sprouting. I've been following the tremors. After the 6th name was spoken, the pattern changed. It no longer ripples outward. It spirals, around a new center, not Lake Van. Mount Nemrut. A royal tomb, built atop a mountain in southeastern Turkey, giant stone heads facing the horizon. King Antiochus believed he was divine, part god, part man. He wasn't wrong. He was one of them. Not possessed, not a cultist. A descendant of the original Flamebound, one of the 7 bloodlines charged with containing the memory of the entity. His tomb isn't just a monument. It's a lock. And I'm holding the final key. Melissa is there. So is the rest of the cult. They've gathered under the stars, which now wheel in unfamiliar patterns. The Orion correlation is broken. The Pleiades burn brighter than ever before. The sky itself is shifting, aligning to something older than Earth. The last ritual begins at midnight. The 7th name must be spoken by a Flamebound whose blood has remembered. That's me. They think I'll do it, that my mind is too cracked to resist. They might be right. But I brought insurance. I met him in a back alley in Urfa. A man who should be dead. Altan, not the professor. The original one. The first to translate the obsidian tablets. His body looks 40. His eyes look 10,000. He said one thing. When the flame rises, someone must choose to burn. He gave me a vial. Inside it, a single shard of black crystal wrapped in copper wire. A counter sigil. If invoked by a flame-bound, it won't stop the awakening, but it will bind it again at the cost of the vessel's mind. He called it the Unname. I climbed Mount Nemrut under a crimson sky. The cult was already chanting. 7 monoliths surrounded the summit, each pulsing with carved sigils. Melissa stood in the center, arms raised, hair whipping in the wind. She didn't stop me, just smiled. "You've come to finish it." I stepped into the ring, my veins burned. The memory stirred. Images flooded me. Fire from the stars, civilizations burning, mothers hiding children beneath crumbling temples, the first flame roaring through forests. I remembered all of it. And I spoke. Not the 7th name. The Unname. The air shattered. No sound, just absence. A silence so deep it erased breath, erased thought. The monoliths cracked. Melissa screamed. The flame rose, no longer metaphor. A structure of impossible angles towered into the sky, its form alive with moving parts that shouldn't exist in our physics. Light flowed backwards. Colors that didn't belong here bled into the clouds. It looked at me, and it remembered. I don't know what happened after that. I woke up 3 days later in a Red Cross tent on the Syrian border. An earthquake had swallowed Mount Nemrut. All they found were stones, no bodies. No Melissa, no cult. Just me. And on my chest, burned into my skin, the symbol of the Unname. The seal held. But not forever. Now I wander. I send these messages when I can, when the signal's clear enough. My name is Elias Branner, but that's just a title now. I am the flame-bound. And the comet is coming back. There's evidence. A new object inbound from the Oort cloud. Fast, erratic. Astronomers say it could graze Earth in 2049. They're wrong. It's not a comet. It's the other half. The memory we buried 12,000 years ago is trying to reunite with what still sleeps beneath the sea. This time, we might not be able to stop it. But we can remember. And sometimes, remembering is the only way to resist.